Hello, friends. Funny story. I forgot to show my face during this interview, so here I am as AI Steve. Let's jump in. Today, I'm excited to introduce John Dwyer, or JD, the creative mind behind the Institute of Wow. JD is a customer attraction expert with clients like Disney, KFC, and 7-Eleven. JD helped businesses of all sizes attract waves of new customers. Let's dive into his innovative approach to creating wow moments that captivate and convert.
Well, Stephen, first of all, I'm very glad to have now been voted vice president, JD. It's funny
Yeah, there you
when
go.
he announced who his VP might be, I couldn't help myself. I put stupid, posts on Facebook and this, that, and the other. And
Yeah.
I had to do that. Steve, thanks for having me on the on your program. Yeah, look, I own a business called the Institute of Wow, and it's all about teaching entrepreneurs and business owners how to create wow factors to make more money in their business.
Awesome. Awesome. So, JD, my story is I've owned my own professional services business for a number of years. I was a lawyer for a number of years, and now I own my financial advisory firm. And let's start with, I think sometimes people confuse a little bit when they're opening a small business or a service-related business. They kind of confuse networking with marketing, right? Networking, going out there trying to find people. If you could, how would you differentiate between a business to how they're when they're marketing and really when they're like networking?
Yeah, good point. Look, to be honest with you, I haven't been a great networker. And I'm not sure what the reasons were. I mean, we've got six children. They're all grown up and left home now, but we had six children under 12 at one stage. So I had to run pretty fast to put food on the table because I was feeding, eight mouths. And I guess I just didn't have the time to do the networking breakfasts and the networking weekends and so forth. But I have to say that was a mistake on my part, because networking is really, a very, very important part of marketing. And I would suggest to everyone that if you can, I'm a member, well, I have been a member of a number of American networks. There's a guy in the States, and you may have heard of him, called Joe Polish.
Okay.
And Joe has a business, well, has a club that's called the Genius Network Club. And so I joined that for a while, and that was fantastic because you could be sitting next to Russell Brunson, who owns the big, sort of CRM program called ClickFunnels. And next minute, you could be sitting next to Anthony Robbins. And I quickly learned from that the mistake that I had made over the years was not being part of those clubs, earlier in my career. So I absolutely would suggest that everyone considers networking. I guess really at the end of the day, people do business with people they like, don't they? And so therefore, if you are part of a networking organization, there's a good chance that you can make friends, and you'll find that those friends will scratch your back and you'll scratch theirs.
Yeah, yeah. And so, when you're going that, you say networking is an important part of marketing. So for people that are, let's say a listener out there is thinking about starting their own business, whether they're making widgets or whether they want to go to a service, right? Provide a service to people out there. When you're thinking about marketing and developing a marketing plan, kind of where do you start? Where should you start?
Yeah, good point. Really, first and foremost is who is your most profitable target audience? Not target audience, because if you're doing wrinkle cream, you might say my target audience are going to be women. But the fact is that because your wrinkle cream is expensive, then you should be talking to women, but probably over 45 and who live in rich suburbs. And so therefore the demographic that you should be zeroing in on is not a wide one, but rather the most profitable demographic. And we had a client not long ago who was selling jewelry, and he was under the impression that, of course, that women would be his target audience, and they were. But he had a very expensive jewelry line, and we had to sort of make him wake up to himself and realize that what he was after were the women who lived in, demographically, geodemographically, suburbs that were very, very wealthy suburbs, because you could not buy a cheap bracelet from him. And the moment that he woke up to himself and he actually zeroed in on that demographic, which was relatively small, then all of a sudden, his sales took off. So it's all about message to market match. You've got to have the right message to the right market.
Yeah. And when you're trying to start out, like you said, he wasn't sure who his market was, right? So let's say, for example, you want to start out as a lawyer, or maybe you're going to start selling as bakery. What are some good ideas and thoughts that how do you go out there and really figure out who your match is. I'll give you an example. My wife and I, we had a business that with baby bibs, and it took us a long time to kind of figure out like who exactly, which are which are the mothers that we're going after. There was also another opportunity, like these can go into adult bibs or like kind of senior homes and stuff like that. So when someone's starting out, like how do you recommend, how do they go about and find, hey, what is my best match? Because sometimes I think that comes through trial and error.
Yeah, well, that too. But Steve, you've hit the nail on the head. Um, it was about a dozen years ago. I said to my wife, look, we're not getting any younger. Why don't we swap to the small to medium sized business sector? Because I had been looking after marketing as a consultant down under, but also, overseas, but certainly more likely down under with McDonald's. I was doing a lot of the continuity promotions for the fast food chains like McDonald's and KFC. And you would know that when the Olympics are on, you'd go to McDonald's and collect the Olympic glasses because every time you bought something, you could get the next color glass. I did all the big scratch games for Rupert Murdoch's newspapers. We were doing a lot of what we call direct response continuity marketing, getting people onto a habit and getting them to stick with that habit because they got a reward at the end.
Hmm.
And I said to my wife a dozen years ago, look, why don't we swap across to the small business sector? And she told me I was an idiot because we still had a couple of our six children at school. And she said, just stick to the bigger businesses. They pay their checks like every month. Well, I was an idiot because I decided to, give up some of these larger clients and go into the small business sector. And I remember Steve, I remember getting on stage at my first seminar. I had no clue what I was doing. I just thought you told a story and they threw money at you.
Uh-huh.
And as it turned out, I'd just come from the boardrooms and I had just been doing a campaign with Jerry Seinfeld. Sorry about the name drop, but I had to throw that in. And here I was in front of a whole bunch of smaller business owners. And I asked the people in the front row, what do you do? And the first lady said, I'm a psychic. The second lady said that I make garden gnomes. And then the third one said she was a life coach. And I said to my wife, I'm going to Costco at morning tea time. And she said, why? I said, I'm going to buy some rope. What the hell have we done? Um, and the reason I tell that silly story is because what I found from that day onwards was that small and medium-sized business owners, whether they were a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, or whatever, they were a very good technician, but they didn't have a lot of skills or knowledge about marketing. So when they went to college to become a dentist, then they got taught how to become a dentist, but they never got taught how to get customers. They didn't get taught that. And if you ask anyone who's got a college degree, did they ever show you how to attract customers? They probably would say no because they're a very good technician, but not a good marketer. And all I would say to anyone who's watching or listening this is that whatever profession you're in, you've got to hone your skills in marketing because the butcher who has a sausage sizzle outside his shop is always going to beat the butcher who's got the same meat, the same steaks, and the same sausages across the road, but closes his door to keep the air conditioning in.
That's awesome. So let's talk about that. I love that. You have those three ladies in the front row, the psychic, the coach, and that's a really, really diverse. You're like, how can I help all these people? But I guess then you would step back and you say, okay, well, listen, even though, like you say, they're good technicians, they know what they're doing in their business, there probably is some things that even if they don't have a ton of time and they're just growing their business, that they could do. So what would you say for someone like that? Let's go to those three ladies once again, starting out, technician, where should they start? Because a lot of people feel overwhelmed. I'm too busy doing the technical side. Where do you recommend they start developing their marketing strategy?
Really, really straightforward, Steve. Identify your target audience's problem and provide them with a solution. With our business, the Institute of Wow, then what we are all about is direct response marketing. So it's not
Okay.
about brand building. There's nothing wrong with brand building. It's the most important thing you can do, of course. Everyone buys Kellogg's because it's Kellogg's and you buy Nike because it's Nike. However, if you're one of the 96% of American businesses that are doing less than $1 million turnover, because that's the stats are 96% of Australian, UK, Europe, and American businesses, 96% of businesses are doing south of 1 million turnover, then you can't afford to sponsor the Olympics. You can't afford to sponsor a football team. You can probably hardly afford to sponsor the local netball team, in your community. What you should be doing is instead of brand building, actually use direct response tactics. And that's advertising on Facebook today and getting a response tomorrow. Okay, good, bad, or indifferent, but you know whether or not your money has brought a return pretty quick, because it's called direct response. And that's what most business owners don't do because they're bumped into an advertising guru who has said to them, I'll build your brand. And I keep on saying whenever I'm speaking in front of small businesses that, if you go to a digital marketing agency or any advertising agency, they will tell you, get them to fall in love with your brand so that they'll buy your product. My view is flip it. Get them to fall in love with your brand so that they'll test your product. My philosophy is to flip that. Get them to taste your product so that they'll fall in love with your brand. So if you were a seafood shop and you were selling fish and you were selling fries, I would have a hostess at lunchtime and dinner time outside handing out calamari samples, getting you to taste test their product. So you'll go inside and buy more expensive, barramundi. And not many people do that. They get caught on this mindset, I've got to build my brand, I've got to build my brand. And really, that's a very expensive thing to do. What you should do, of course, instead of coming home tonight and saying to the kids around the dinner table, we got 162 likes today. And the kids go, Daddy, I'm skinny. Any food that you might be able to put on the table rather than vanity metrics?
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, and I love to dive into that because I remember when we had our business. It was a while back. We're going back a number of years, but we were starting out with some there's Google pay per click, there's Facebook advertising, which is starting to take off, right? To go in there, there was the retargeting, right? Where when people, if you ever go into a website and then this ad follows you, they go through that. And I like how you compare that to brand building because I think some people, when they're socially, digitally online and they're in Facebook, they're talking about their product, they may think that they're going direct to consumer, right? When it sounds like they're really just doing brand building. So, what are some good examples? You say kind of Facebook clicks. Like, what's an idea? We don't have to use exact dollar amounts, right? Some people might say, well, I don't have necessarily a budget for that. Or how do you start that process of doing that Facebook marketing, those pay per clicks, or whatever it might be? I guess we'll start off in the digital universe because most people here might be trying to market there first. Not many storefronts anymore.
Yep. Yeah, no, good. And of course, I'm a baby boomer, so I had to make sure that I caught up with the digital age very quickly as it was, evolving in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, Steve, is that, a lot of people are using digital marketing in the same way that they may have taken out a full page in the newspaper or they put a cute jingle with some nice imagery on TV. They are using it to brand build. And that's fine if you're Coca-Cola or you're Kellogg's, but it's not sensible if you happen to be a small business and you've got to put food on the table for the kids. And I'll give you an example. We have for what we've found, Steve, in our business, which is the Institute of Wow.com, we found that giving concepts and giving advice to small business owners was silly. It was just silly because, look, no matter how much help you want to give them philosophically and whatever your mantra might be, unless they are very, very, it sort of fall into the 2 or 3% category, they go to all of the seminars and they listen to the webinars and the podcast. They just don't have time to implement. The guy and the lady who might have 2 or 3 children, they might listen to these podcasts and so forth. But the fact is that implementation is the big key. They just don't have time for it. So we changed our whole mantra about 3 or 4 years ago to provide them with the whole package. So we do it for them. We say to them, look, here's a promotion whereby you can put this campaign on Facebook and we'll look after it for you. And an example is one that we do, which is called the Facebook contest formula. And we teach businesses how to hold a contest on Facebook and give away their product or service as the prize. Because what's going to happen is that they might get 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 entries that want to win the refrigerator or want to win the landscaping services or whatever it may be. One prize gets given away, but you've got 999 other people who have glowed in the dark, put their hand up and said, I need landscaping. And so you've got a hot leads like from heaven, and we don't even ask them to follow up the leads anymore because we know they won't do it. We have an AI robot now that actually rings all of the people who entered that contest from the following Monday and rings and offers them a special deal on the item that they were wanting to win. So the robot basically says to them, look, Mrs. Smith, you wanted to win landscaping services. It's pretty obvious that you need some landscaping. We've got a special deal on this week. And the results from that are incredible because it's laser targeted and it's direct response.
Judy, let me tell you that I don't know that we were ahead of our times. This is about 10 years ago, my wife and I. But whenever we would go on Facebook and we would run a contest just like that, right? It was give us reviews or like here or do take some action and we will give away bibs. We used to get so many people submitting. People love that. People love contests, right? It's like just naturally in our DNA that they love to have those. So that's wonderful. And I like that you say on the other side that we have this AI that phones them up and takes that next action, which the small business owner many times doesn't have time to do.
Well, Steve, there was one, this is just last week, and this guy is as cheeky and sarcastic as I am, so we've got on really well. And he owns a business that sells mobility aids to senior people. So the walking frames with the wheels on them, and it might be the scooters that they go down to the shops with and so forth. And we ran a contest for him to win a $500 walking frame with wheels, okay? And of course, the target audience is more likely going to be people in their 70s and 80s. And he said, do you think they'll be on Facebook? I said, well, let's give it a shot. He rings me at the end of the week, panting because he is sarcastic. So he's going, I said, righto, idiot, what's happened? And he said, you've got no idea. We turned the ad on Monday at 10 a.m. We had 78 entries or 78 hot leads by the end of the day. He said, we're now at the end of the first week. We've got 822 leads at
Wow.
35 cents a lead. So he's spending a lousy $40 a day on this Facebook contest formula. So that's $280 over the week that he spent. He's got 822 leads, which works out to be 35 cents a lead. 35 cents a lead. He would pay 20, 30, $40 a lead, you know.
Right.
And what happens is he said, I was surprised that there's 75 and 85-year-olds that are entering this contest at 2 in the morning, would you believe, on
Uh-huh.
Facebook. And I said, well, they've probably, finished the book. They've got nothing else to do. And he said to me, but how are we going to follow this up? He said, we used to get 800 leads in 3 months. Now we've got 800 leads. And I said, well, that's where the robot comes in. So therefore, our AI robot now is ringing. We're only into the second week for him. It's ringing all those people now, giving them a special offer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So JD, as you mentioned, a lot of these people, like we say before, you said they're great technicians. They might not have time for this, but I'm sure a lot of these entrepreneurs out there have kind of tried their hand at marketing. And so I would ask to say, when you come in and you see someone, they've reached out to you for whatever reason, they've tried their hand at marketing. If you could talk to them, or imagine that someone that's listening out here to go to you, that they've tried their hand at it, what are some of the things you've seen that they've tried to do, and what can you also say that you've seen that why it hasn't worked? And then I'll give you the biggest softball of softballs, okay? And why should they reach out to a firm like yours and invest that time and money with you rather than try to kind of go at it on their own?
Yeah, good question, Steve. And my simple answer of why should they reach out to someone, whether it be me or someone else that has skills in that industry, is because my mantra is if you've got a sore tooth, go to a dentist. Okay. I am the worst handyman in the world. Okay. I go to hardware stores and just walk around so I look like a man. Okay. But if I was to buy anything, my wife would just laugh. I wouldn't know what to do with a hammer. And so I think we've spent quite a bit of money over the years with handyman coming in to fix the hinges on the door or anything that any basic man could do. I can't do. I'm hopeless,
Mhm.
right? And so therefore I hire a handyman because if I've got a sore tooth, go to a dentist. And it's no different from marketing. I mean, there's a lot of business owners that try to do it themselves and some do well, but most fail. And the reason is it's just not part of their DNA. And my view is that the businesses that I've seen that failed are the businesses that don't understand there are 5 components to direct response marketing that they should follow. Number one, identify the problem that your audience has. Number two, aggravate that problem. So it might be are you overweight and aggravate that problem by saying, look, summer's just around the corner. Do you want to look good in your swimsuit? Number three is basically provide the solution. Come onto my diet program and you'll look like a supermodel in 4 weeks. Number four is proof, and that's normally, somebody saying, look, I was overweight, but now I look like a supermodel. And then number five, what we call CTA, which is a call to action. And that means is that, go to this website or ring this number. Really, if you distill all of that down, it comes down to what we call problem solution marketing. Highlight the problem that your audience has and make sure that you deliver to them your solution. And you know what? Because everyone is conscious that they think price is the most important thing, They drop their pants and price discount instead of doing the obvious, showing their problem and providing the solution. And the last thing, Steve, with that is that if you're going to provide a solution to someone, make sure that you give them a bonus if they buy your solution by Friday at 5 o'clock. And that's what most businesses don't do. They don't use any tactics to get people off the fence. They just say, oh, this offer will be available, till you die. What you should be doing if you want to actually put food on the table next week is to say, look, this special offer where you buy my refrigerator and you get a free vacation, that's only available till Friday at 5 o'clock.
That's awesome. And I like it. I would say a different way, JD, right? That kind of strategy. It's kind of like dig a hole for them and sell them a ladder, right? Let them know what the issue is. Let them know what the urgency out there, right? Is, hey, but lo and behold, here I have the solution for you. So I love that. I love those five. I always love lists. I love to have those lists out there for people that can actually act on and try to follow through it, and that's wonderful. So JD, let's say you come across, or someone's listening out there that they've done, whether, and I'll tell you my personal story is I used to do a networking. I didn't like networking, right? It didn't really resonate with me. I was more of like in my social circle, people I know, building relationships. I guess that's still technically, networking. I just didn't like the groups, and I would build my business through that. But as I've gotten older, I want to market, right? I see it as networking is going where they are to bring them to me. Marketing is like say, hey, here I am, come over here, right? And bring people towards you. So you have someone, a more mature business, whether mine or another one, that's has some networking or marketing success, right? But let's say they've gotten to a level, I'll whatever it might be. I'll use your $1 million sales revenue, goal hurdle. They're bumping up against it, right? They're a successful business. They're bumping up against it. What are some of your thoughts or advice, or how could a company like yours help somebody that's had some success but wants to go to the next level of success?
Yeah, look, I'm going to name drop here the Seinfeld thing, and the short story is I got Jerry Seinfeld to be the spokesman for a bank down under some years ago, and it answers exactly what you've just asked. What had happened is that this particular bank they were a client of mine, and they were taking on the big banks. They were called the Greater Building Society, and they're the 250th biggest business in Australia, but they certainly weren't as big as the Wells Fargo style banks, right? And stupidly, they were trying to beat the Wells Fargo style banks, which were the number 3 and 4 and 5 biggest businesses in Australia, on interest rates. In other words, they were a little corner store trying to beat Costco on price. It's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore, when I actually was given the job as a consultancy, I looked at all of the rubbish that the advertising agency was doing. Oh, you get a home loan from us for 6.2%. Well, Wells Fargo down the road would be 6.1% before you could say Jack Robinson, right? And I said, look, I don't know what you people have been smoking, but you're not going to beat the big guy, be the corner store trying to beat Kmart. It's not going to happen. So you are just idiots. And they said, okay, smart Alec, because I spoke so nicely to my clients like that, they said, what do you suggest? And I said, look, I'm doing some travel commercials on TV at the moment, some infomercials for a travel discounter. How about I introduce you and you stop this honeymoon rate? Because as you would know, Steve, most banks, when you go to get a home loan, they'll give you a 1% honeymoon break for the first year, and then it jacks up to the next year. So I said, look, pick that up and give it to the travel company. And that means it's cost neutral. You're not having to pay for the vacation, and they'll give you a cheap vacation. They'll give you a $5,000 vacation for 2.5, let's say. And they said, okay, smart Alec. And so that's what we did. We came on television and social media, and we said, swap your home loan from the Wells Fargo style bank across to us. And not only will you get better service and blah, 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 but you'll get a free vacation. They tripled their home loans in the first 3 months and quadrupled them in the first 12 months. And the complete idiot moron who you're talking to didn't charge a percentage of the increase in home loans. I charge a consultancy because I'm a fool, right? This thing took billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of extra money. And then about 3 or 4 years in, I did exactly what you just asked, and that is we took it to another level. So they were doing very well, thank you very much. But the next level we took it to was a celebrity endorsement, and that was Seinfeld. And I contacted his manager, George Shapiro. He's sarcastic. I'm sarcastic. We got on pretty well. And for whatever reason, Jerry said yes. And for 3 years, then I'd go backwards and forwards to New York, and we'd get Seinfeld to do the commercials. 3 years, we had the biggest, comedian in the world representing this bank down under. And it was Jerry Seinfeld saying, get a home loan, get a free vacation, it went through the stratosphere. So I guess really it's what Disney called plus one. I do a lot of Disney courses in Orlando at the Disney Institute, and they teach you how to run your business like Disney. And what Disney says is that once you reach the pinnacle, plus one it. And that's what we did. We actually reached the pinnacle of home loans. You couldn't get any more home loans, but we plus one it by putting Seinfeld on.
That's awesome. That's awesome, JD. This has been a great conversation. Let me close with this one question. This is always something that's been interesting to me, and I'd love to get your answer on this, right? Because maybe I just think about me, and it's this concept of celebrity endorsements, right? Because I see a celebrity go in there and say, "I'm going to use this hand cream. I'm going to buy this product," or stuff like that. And for me personally, I say, "I don't give a darn. I don't know you. I don't care what you do." But that's not how it works, right? These faces and names that people know, it works. What's the concept? What's the strategy? Why do celebrity endorsements work? Because everyone's doing them, and I just never understood, why do they work?
Yep. And very, very simple, Steve. And I'm glad you asked me that because I know everything. Okay.
Right.
So,
Clearly,
yeah.
that's why we're speaking.
Absolutely. And one of my greatest assets is my humility. Yeah, so you are borrowing the equity of that person. So therefore, over the years, I would deal with Disney. So I'd be backwards and forwards to Los Angeles quite a bit. And I would take out the licenses for their trading cards, the bubblegum cards. Okay. So
Hmm.
whether it was Beauty and the Beast or whether it was The Lion King or Little Mermaid, I would pay Disney 12.5% to actually borrow the equity of the Little Mermaid or the Lion King, and then I would print images on these bubblegum cards and we'd put them out through the drugstores, and that's the way it worked. So therefore, you're doing exactly the same when you have a sports star or celebrity. You are paying them to borrow the equity that they've built up. Just like I used to pay Disney to borrow Mickey Mouse's equity, you
Hmm.
pay them. Now, Seinfeld has a massive equity in terms of being obviously an entertaining, sort of actor. And so, therefore, the moment that you put him next to your brand, then you've got his. And look, I would say to you, be very careful with sports stars because they can be naughty and out all sorts of places outside of their sport. Then you don't want someone who's representing your brand all of a sudden to be the person that's on TV being accused of doing something wrong when he was drunk. Okay,
Yeah.
we did our research on Seinfeld, and because you've got to take out insurance when you have one of these people, and it's called death or dishonor. So if they happen to pass away or they do something silly, then of course you're insured your business against it. We did basically a death and dishonor campaign. Well, we got an insurance company to quote on Seinfeld. They came back and said, "Look, we haven't seen anything that he's done wrong. We think he's related to Mother Teresa," right? So
Right.
it was a pretty safe bet. And so
Yeah.
yeah, look, when you are looking for anybody for a celebrity or as a sports star, make sure you do your homework because again, it should be a good message to market match. In the instance of this building society, we'd already created a very cheeky personality. So guess who was a perfect spokesperson? Seinfeld.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's interesting. You go back, you talk about the branding side of it. That's where these celebrities, their brand is themselves, right? And we started out by talking branding versus marketing. I think many of the small business owners out there, like you say, they're really, whether they're out there trying to build their brand, which is many times then, and their reputation and all the like, and they probably do that through actually doing their work. This marketing is a different process, a different way of going about it. And I think you've done a great job of explaining that difference. So JD, listen, as we close up here, I want to give you the floor. One last opportunity out there. If there's anything you'd want to say, marketing related, a little tidbit, something that's coming up for the audience that you might, think of value. If you want to dig a hole and sell them a ladder as well, please. The floor is yours if you want to close out with anything.
Well, thank you, Steve. And we're coming to the part of the interview where it turns into an infomercial, and I tell you why you should contact me and why you should give me a whole bunch of money in a brown paper bag at the back of the shelter shed. What I thought I would do, Steve, is actually give a gift because, look, I live to give, and so therefore, when I was doing this, when I have been doing this seminar game, the people who've been in it longer than me said you've got to write a book. And because I'm inherently lazy, I went, oh, come on. Like, you got to write a book. So I thought if my business is called the Institute of Wow.com, I better write a big book. And so therefore, whoever's listening to this won't see the size of it. But if you're watching this on video, the book that I've written is the size of of a tabloid newspaper. It's leather bound with gold tipped edges, and it's 300 pages of swipe files, case studies of stuff that I've done over the years that work. That book, by the way, costs $420 to print. It's a very, very large book. I am happy to give the digital version of that away free of charge. And so therefore, Steve, can I give everyone the URL that they can go to
Yes,
get that?
please, please.
It is, the book is called The Wow Manifesto, and essentially it's a gigantic coffee table book, which is a swipe file. And so you've got, dozens and dozens and dozens of all of the direct response things that have worked over the years. And by the way, there were some that didn't work. I didn't put them in the book. Okay, I thought it was best to put the successful ones in. So you can get that for free at wowmanifesto.com/gift. So that's wowmanifesto.com /gift, GIFT. And one thing I might say to you is that when you do get that book, you will also get the opportunity to get probably what is the most successful stimulant that I've ever seen for any business. And it's based on the Jerry Seinfeld bank promotion, which was get a home loan, get a free vacation. A company contacted me, which was a vacation company, after they saw that campaign that said, look, we can give you $1,000 holiday vouchers that you can give businesses for $50. And so what we do now is that we tell businesses, look, when you're actually promoting your product or service, use a Happy Meal toy philosophy and say, look, buy my product or service and I'll give you a free vacation. And so they can go for 3 nights in Vegas, Orlando, New York, San Diego, Grand Canyon, and basically hand out to a customer an incentive to buy their product, whereby they give the customer a 3 to 7 night vacation, but it's only cost them $50. And they will see that when they actually download that book.
That's awesome, JD. I thought you were going to show me a coffee table book about coffee tables.
That would be a good thing to do, wouldn't it?
Oh, JD, come on. That's a Seinfeld reference.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Well, look, Steve, before we go, I know you're pressed on time, but I had not watched Seinfeld much. Of course, I knew
Oh,
who he was.
okay.
And so before I went over to meet him for the first time, the Greater Building Society advertising department, because they knew I was an idiot and I had not watched many of the show, they gave me like 100 series to watch. And so, the Soup Nazi and all that sort of stuff, I had no clue. So I watched all of it before I went. Not every episode, but I watched enough of them to at least know what the show was all about. I didn't realize that there was a coffee table book about coffee tables.
That was Kramer's idea. He went on the Regis Philbin and Kathy Lee show and anything. But anyway, maybe you'll come across that show. JD, listen, I've really enjoyed our time. I really appreciate everything here. I appreciate that offer here at the end. We'll definitely have that on the show notes for everyone there. But JD, I really thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's been a real pleasure for me. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today. AI Steve signing off. Hope you had as much fun as I did. Sometimes when you forget to show your face, a little AI magic saves the day. Think you can tell the difference? Catch the full episode now and let me know what you think.